Then auger mining. So auger mining is also another form of surface mine where you have already mined out your coal. So let me use an image I had here, which is clearer. To do the demonstration of auger mining for you. Okay, so let's have a look at this. Image 3, this is what I am, this image 2, this is what I'm using. So let's assume that you have finished your mining activities for this particular bench. You are done. But then later on, you realize that there are still some small amount of coal hidden here. It's just like I said, and you don't want to let go. So you put your finger there to scoop the excesses that are in your those corners. You want to pull them out and enjoy. So in the same way, when I do my usual strip mining and activities, but I realize that there's some kind of overburden here. When I compare the amount of money I will spend in order to take this overburden relative to the deposit below that thick overburden, which is small, I don't want to venture. So I use a technique called auger mining. So I'll come and stand by the edge of the wall and use something that looks like a drill and drill into the side of the wall. And as I drill, the drill device you are going to use will have a hole in it. So as it pushes into the wall, it will be cutting the coal material through the hole within the drill, and it will be coming out, and you load them onto any device you want to use to convey the material. Then when you drill at this point, you go to the next and drill and pick the material. You go again to the next, to the next, to the next. But you try as much as possible not to take everything, because if you take everything, the whole of the waste material will cave. So you do it as if you are leaving pillars beneath the overburden material. So at the end of the day, you can get, like literature says, this type of technique, you can get like about 60% of the coal you should have left there, because the overburden is too thick and you don't want to spend money. You could have left it, but you don't want to. So if you use this technique, you can get about 60% of whatever is down there. So it is not just a full technique that you can use for a whole mining, but it comes in when you have adopted a particular technique for your mining. And this time around, you want to just pick some excesses, which usually in underground mine, we have something we call pillar robbing and whatnot. So you are finished mining, but you feel your pillars you left there contain ore. So you begin to trim them down from the back towards your exit point. So that is how auger mining also operates. So you see, this is the wall. The whole of this wall is waste, but then the coal is hidden below here. So you use this machine and then drill through the wall and get the coal out and let the wall still stand there. So that is it. So you are able to achieve about 40 to 60% maximum recovery when you are using auger mining. And then quarry is also used when you don't have any precious mineral at a place, but the rock there could serve a purpose. Just like when you go to along this Cape Coast Takoradi route, there are a lot of granite there. So many companies are there doing quarry businesses. And so they also drill and blast, just like a normal mining company or a normal open pit mine. They do the same processes, but the only difference here is that when it is a mine, a usual precious mineral mining company, when we crush, we proceed and mill. We proceed to mill and process and get the precious mineral. But then with quarry, their end product is the rock. they have blasted. So they will finish and do the crushing to the sizes that their customer or the client is looking for. Then they are done with their job. So if someone employs them to bring stones of a certain dimensions that can be used for ballast on a railway, so if I set up a rail and I want to put those stones there, that is what they have requested for. I will break the rocks and crush them to that sizes that are required and sell. I'm done. If I do the blasting, the chippings and the soft material that are left there in the pit, where in the case of mining, we will be happy because it will save us some cost in milling. This time around, we will fetch those materials and sell to somebody as soil for building blocks, molding blocks, and we are done. So that is the major difference when we come to quarry and mining. And sometimes we also go for dimension stones. You can cut, if you have a particular type of rock there, you can cut them in the form of shapes that could be used for building. And so we have dimension stones, we have marbles, granite, limestone, sandstone, slate, and the like. So let's talk about our next technique of mining, which we call placer mining. So I explained earlier that when we say placer mining, it is any mining we do in water. Most of the time, we do this type of mining in water. And then we call it placer because the deposit you are mining in that water was not in the water, or it was not formed in the water. Rather, the mineral was transported by water from somewhere, and they all, because that water at that point was a low level area, they got deposited. Just like if you want sand for molding blocks in your house, you could have a gutter behind your house or a stream behind your house, then you try to dig a certain portion of the gutter very deep. So when it rains and sand is being transported along with the water, when it gets to that place you have created, the sand gets settled into that hole, and later on you could get into the gutter and fetch your sand for your purpose. In the same way, placer deposits are also like that. They were transported elsewhere and they are dumped in that river body or that particular, just like Ankobra. Ankobra is a very big river that have got a lot of tributaries. Other waters connect to it. So when the sand is, or the minerals are transported from other places, they all get there and they get stuck. And someone has been able to identify that, oh, there's a mineral of interest here, there's gold inside this water, so we can mine it. Then we begin our mining process inside the water. So when you go to other jurisdictions, they try as much as possible to divert the water and block the water from exceeding its bounds. You demarcate it to tell where you are going to work within the water and divert future water that is coming through another route. And then you can stay within that water you have there, scoop the material and transport them through conveyor to a far area to go and process. But in our case, we will prefer not to spend extra money, but to stay inside the water and work, wash in there, bath in there, do all that we want inside the water, and then fresh water is also coming. And these ones will push the waste you are doing within that water, within your zone, to other places, and at the end of the day, we get polluted rivers. So placer deposit is typically what has been explained. And there are two types of placer ways we mine placer deposit. The two types are hydraulic mining and then dredging mining. So dredging mining is what I explained, that we have a machine called a dredger, or where you put the machine, it floats on water. So you place this machine on the water, and then it scoops from the bed of the river or that kind of water you want to mine the placer in it. And then it is transported through that dredger, through conveyor belt onto your plant, and you begin processing. Usually when you are dealing with a placer deposit, you don't need anything like crusher, because the materials are already in a form of sand. They have already been milled because of the harsh weather conditions in the transportation of the minerals. By the time it gets to its destination, they are already broken into finer particles. And so you go straight ahead and do your extraction process, no crushing. Then hydraulicking is usually where you have a soft deposit. Then you begin to more or less suction. So hydraulic mining of use hydraulic king utilizes high pressure stream of water that is directed against the mineral deposit, normally but not always a placer, undercutting it and causing it to remove by erosion action. So here I have a soft deposit somewhere. Then I go in there and subject high pressure water that is flowing under high pressure to that mineral deposit. Then it begins to break it and form liquid. And I'll give a direction where I want that water to flow through. So the mineral deposit that is being broken through the high pressure device, which is called the hydraulic king, will break this deposit and mix it with the water. So just like it gives the pressure, just like how we have what is the name? These car washers, you know, they are devices they use in washing cars, provide a lot of pressure. So this one will also exert some kind of pressure on the surface of the soft material. It will break it and begin to form a liquid and flow through a system, a direction you will decide where you want the whole water to be collected. But sometimes as it flows, assuming it is a hill that you are breaking, you can't control the direction of flow of water. So at the end of the day, the water spreads to other sides of the land which you are not interested in, and you end up polluting the environment. And so in other jurisdictions, this type of mining is not allowed. So this is a typical example of the device that can be used for hydraulicking. So you sit on there and subject the high water pressure from here onto the surface of the wall. So this is a typical example. So you see they've given it a direction, and that is the machine. And there's someone sitting there, and they are subjecting the whole of this wall to water, and begins to break. So this man is also here, also doing a similar thing. So it begins to break, and then they are trying to use this as a guide. So this is providing the water, and then this materials that are broken begins to flow to a certain point. Then after that, they will fetch these materials that are broken, and they will wash or transport them to their processing plant for processing.